Oh, good morning, good morning, good morning. It's me running towards the bench. I'm sorry to be late. So many things going on here this morning or every day. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Excuse me. Hair, makeup. Good morning, good morning. Hair all dry? Not really, it's damp, but whatever, it'll do. It'll dry over in the next few minutes. You've inspired me to go swimming regularly and manage 1,000 meters. Okay, take it easy, but don't hurt yourself. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. I struggled this morning at the pool. I say struggled, but it wasn't a bad thing. It was the pace lady wasn't there. Sometimes on Mondays she's not there. Like once every couple of months or something. I get there on Monday and I'm all by myself in the lane. So it's okay. I struggle at first of what to do. And then Dave, relax, just sort of take the day off. Just count your lanes, just do it. Don't worry about how fast or how slow. Just take the day off, you know. So I did my swim, but there was no thinking about where I am I going to get past, you know. Clearly I've been overthinking this too much. So a nice peaceful swim in the pool today. Okay, it is going to be a very slow, nothing happens stream today. I haven't got a next carving job prepared yet. So it's going to be a catch up, and it's not so interesting. I'm sorry, another batch arrived yesterday afternoon, late yesterday. Another batch of Patreon chibis arrived. And this is Monday, and the crew will be waiting to pack these today. I had forgotten on the weekend to prepare this. So Naomi-san has prepared name labels and address labels and everything else. And the crew here today, if the shop is quiet, the crew wants to get these packed. So I'm going to have to sit here for the next few minutes and chop, chop, chop. So not really a major printmaking content, I'm sorry. You've seen this before too. It's not like you're going to see a brand new print. So that's fine. We can have a quiet day. Paper is out. The paper is out for Day-chan. She's printing. She's doing the first couple of hundred of the explosions. Now, how do we do this so that you can see what's going on? I forget. We had a good layout last time. We've got the before stack, kind of, and the out stack over here, maybe? I don't know. Let's have a look and see. Yeah, the edges and trip. It's video editing. I mean, these days, most evenings, I'm doing video editing, and what you see here is a clip. And I was struggling with the light when Sadako and I shot some of these pictures. Like you can see here, the sun is behind me. This one corner of the video is bright light, and I'm struggling with how to do this in Final Cut Pro. I am not a major video editor. And I'm not looking for a tutorial here. It's okay. That's not the idea. I know where to get information. It's just a question of how much time do I spend on the thing. Okay, there's 2 trims to make here. Actually, there's 3. The paper's a bit too large top, it's a bit too large sideways, and of course, we have to cut the prints in half. So the first step, I've got the guides all laid out. These guides will stay here for the year. This is our Patreon chibi cutting board. So these guides stay here pretty much permanently. one cut there, and another cut here, and then it'll have to go another cut on the edge, which I'll skip for now. So this is our work this morning. So if you want interesting conversation or something, prompt me with something interesting, whatever, we'll go for it. Yeah, that situation with the light, of course, we were a little bit struggling that day. The weather, we were there for 2 days. The first day was supposed to be the outside work. The second day was going to be the inside work. And we got up in the morning the first day. The weather forecast was pretty clear. It's going to be okay in the morning, and it's going to be pissing rain all afternoon. So Sadako and I ran around town. We quickly ran here, ran there, tried to get all of our outside shots done in the morning before it started to rain. So we really didn't have a lot of time to fool around and set everything up properly. That's my excuse. Turned out it didn't rain at all in the afternoon. I know somebody's asking me, can we show you the explosion? I know I don't have it here. Lei-chan has my proof copies. She has them upstairs. She's not here yet. She has my proof copies, and she's got her own test prints, and she's got the batch of prints she's working on. But I don't have a single one here to show you. I'm not trying to be coy. And believe me, when I get one, I will show you happily. But I just don't have one right now. I'm sorry. I know everybody wants to see it. I'm not trying to hide it. Just I don't have one. Now, someone has dropped a question in the chat here about the history of woodblock printmaking, and it's funny because today's show and tell, as part of the current video preparation that we were doing here yesterday afternoon. The staff yesterday afternoon, the shop was pretty quiet, so during the afternoon I got them to help me with some of the props for the next YouTube video, which is about papermaking and the history of ukiyo-e printmaking, which somebody has asked about just here. So let me take a rain check on that question to 9:15. And I can answer part of it. I'll be showing you the props that I've prepared, some of these props. Am I familiar with the cartographers? No, I'm sorry. I know we are told that related to the history of color printmaking in Japan, that in the early days, they were printing with single color. They were printing with black. They then started printing with black and painting in colors by hand. These were the early stages of printing here. But we are told, and this is apocryphal or mythical or fact, I don't know, but some of the research books in Japanese, when they're discussing the early days of color printmaking in Japan, they repeat the factoid that it was map makers, the map makers of Edo, who figured out how to do color printing. They had been printing maps, black lines, and then painting in the blue rivers and whatever by hand. And it seems quite possible that some bright spark in the workshop over there that was printing maps figured out a way to save time and print the blue color block to go with the black outlines. As I said, this is all apocryphal. There's no hard data on this, because even if a workshop at that time had done this, they weren't about to broadcast the news and tell every other workshop how to do it. So there's no hard data, but it does look like it's quite possible that map making, printed maps, were a very important step in how to make color woodblock prints. some of this, doesn't this get tedious after a while? It's sort of normally not my job, and I don't care. At the moment, the last couple of weeks, the last few days, the last time, I'm just so buzzing with stuff. I am not unhappy to sit here and do a tedious job for some time. Well, so let's talk about Otu-e. Otu-e are not related to woodblock prints really at all. I know there's James Michener wrote about those in his book. And he made the first chapter of his book about Otu-e, and he described them as a forerunner to ukiyo-e prints. And it's pretty obvious that's not the case. It doesn't line up historically, it doesn't line up technically, it doesn't line up in any way whatsoever. Otu-e were a thing, tourist pictures from the town of Otsu on the Tokaido. And as time went by, they began to be made as woodblock prints, of course, to save time. But they're clearly not any way a precursor to woodblock prints. Michener, you know, he had fun and he told some good stories. We've mentioned this before in relation to his work. I know, you know, he didn't let the facts get in the way of a good story. So. The other day, one day last week, I had dinner with one of my neighbors here. I think we might have mentioned this. The guy who designs electronic musical instruments, Mr. Omo, O-M-O, Naoyuki Omo-san. You've never heard his name, but he's sort of famous in that world, the world of certain types of electronic musical instruments. And he's known for making a new modern version of the old French electronic instrument. My pronunciation here may not be correct. The ondes martenot. Back in the 1920s, the instrument was invented in France. And it's become over the years sort of a cult thing. I know modern digital synthesizers kind of tended to blow away a lot of old analog musical instruments. But the ondes martenot is a thing, and he's pretty much devoted the last few decades to building a modern, cheaper version of it. Cheaper not being cheaper in quality, but a real instrument that will sing as well as the original, but it would be accessible to normal people. And he did this about 10 years ago. It would be about 2014 or so. He built himself a sort of assembly line, and he made 100 copies of the instrument, his design for this instrument. And they went out into the world. And I think one of the guys in Radiohead used them, and that sort of set it off for quite a while. Anyway, he's now spent the last bunch of years working on the next iteration. He thinks he has a way that he can produce these things even less expensive and still a very high quality of interesting musical instrument. And this is what he's been doing for the past few years now in his little tiny workshop around the corner here. So we had dinner together, and I listened to all his plans and stuff. And he would be cool for a guest here to come and like bring one of these things and to sit here. We can do a Johnny Carson. He can sit here on this chair, you know, and play his instrument. But he doesn't speak a freaking word of English. He's just like, sorry, sorry, sorry. So it doesn't really make much sense to ask him here to sit in one morning. Or does it? I don't know. We could do a semi-interview and I can translate everything or interpret everything. Because the cool part would be the instrument itself. What's funny, you're mentioning, somebody here is mentioning an erhu, and to some extent this instrument very much overlaps that kind of a sound. It's monophonic for the most part, and it's very much vibrato based and slide based. It really does sound to some extent like an erhu. I know he does have some small things on social media. If you, I know I should have typed this in. We mentioned the other day. This is the name of his instrument, Ondomo. His name himself is Omo. That's his last name, Omosa. And Ondomo is his brand name, the name of his instrument. And there's a bunch of stuff out there. There's lots of people who have one of his instruments, who have put up videos of it. And as we were having dinner the other day, we were chatting about this, and I was getting an update from him. You know, I've known him for years. I've known what he's doing, so there was no explanation of this, but it was an update on what he's doing and how he's doing. And we came to realize that our two businesses actually are really sort of similar in many, many ways, and they're opposite in some ways. In his business, it's similar to mine in that he doesn't at all try and sell things. He doesn't do marketing, he doesn't do sales, he doesn't do this because there's demand out there. There's huge demand for the thing that he makes. His problem is production, making it nicely, making it properly, making it with no defects, and making it at a reasonable price that can go into the market. And that's exactly the same as our situation. We don't sell anything, we don't try and sell anything. Our problem as it is, or the main thing that takes up our time and energies, is the making of the prints, not the selling of them. We don't have a marketing department. And then there's also the aspect of the tradition. He has taken the traditional instrument as it was created in 1927, but as it stands, as it stood, it was what it was, but it was a nightmare in terms of maintenance and keeping the instruments up and active and running. So the tradition was there, but he needed to put a modern layer on top of it without taking away the things that the tradition had brought to it that made it interesting. And that's sort of the same thing we're doing. We work on the old traditions, with the old traditions. We have to modernize them to some extent because the materials and everything are not there. But we never want to remove the specific, beautiful, interesting parts of it that had come from the tradition. That's a sound we don't hear too often here in downtown Tokyo. Tom, you've spelled it wrong. It's semi. S-E-M-I. Semi. It must be an escapee from not the shrine gardens, the temple gardens. About 50 meters from here is a pond, a lake, surrounded by woods. It's the Dempo-in, the temple, the garden there. And of course there's trees, and there must be, I don't know, these insects must be there. And he must have flown unknowingly out of the garden, and maybe he's parked on my little tree outside. He's going to have a little bit of trouble finding a mate there, I think. But, An anime summer vibe. Some saying, what do we do with the scrap paper? We have a problem with this right now. The problem is growing and growing and growing. In my earlier days here in Japan, when I lived in Otu-e by myself making prints, I used to keep the offcuts, all the offcuts of washi. There's a few kinds, I know. When we've done the sizing, sometimes the paper we send to the printers doesn't need the mimi, the selvage, we cut that off. And sometimes the paper that has gone to the printers was necessarily sometimes a little bit too large. So we have offcuts like this. Of course, we trim. In the time when I was living in Otu-e, there was a gentleman who lived nearby me. He knew, he must have seen my work one day or something, I don't remember. He must have asked me, do you have offcuts or something? And I said, sure, I do. He came over to my place. He died. What do you mean? It was in seventh heaven because I had all these bags of offcuts. So he took them away, and he and his buddies had a little group that used to do handmade printed New Year's cards. And this for them was a gold mine. So they came over, he came over to pick it up, and he and his buddies, they used all my offcut paper every year. And they boiled it up. They would put it in on the stove, hot water, boil it. It came apart. Then I guess they threw it in their sink and whatever, and they made little bits of paper out of it. They made small sheets of paper for making their New Year's cards. And this went on year after year after year. He happily came. I happily stored up all my offcuts, and once a year, it would be autumn or something, I can't remember. He came over and picked it up, and he's gone now, he's died. And we don't have anybody else who is here in Japan who wants to use this stuff. And we now have a problem because we have bags and bags and bags. And I'm not talking like a little bag. I'm talking bulky 45-liter bags. We've got about half a dozen bags of this stuff. It's all made from pure mulberry, pure kozo. We can't send it back to the paper makers. They don't want it for two reasons. One, because it's got glue in it. It's been sized. Most of our offcut stuff, not all of it, but most of it has been sized. And the second is, it's been, by definition, it's been cut. These are offcuts, which means that if you boil this up and separate the fibers, many of the fibers have now been cut and are short. And that, they feel, that would severely weaken the finished paper. Maybe if they were desperate for fiber and the last farm had gone, they would be willing to take some of this, but that's not the situation. Anyway, long story short, Iwano-san won't take it back, doesn't want it. I don't want to throw it away because it is so cool. This stuff is so beautiful. It's perfect for somebody who wants to muck around with paper making at home. The problem is I can't ship it overseas. Too expensive, too bulky, too whatever. He used to just drop over to my house in his car. We threw it in his trunk and away he went. Boom. He's happy, I'm happy. So if anybody listening to this lives nearby and wants some of this stuff, let us know. Because the staff at Otu-e now, they're getting a little kind of pissed off at me. Because we're running out of space to store everything. And they want to throw this away. This is the question. Someone says, I'd take it off your hands if I wasn't on the other side of the planet. Yes, this is the problem. So if anybody local meaning in this country, you know, whatever wants it, if anybody wants to come and pick it up, just let us know. Call me first, because we have to gather it up. There's tons of it in Otu-e, there's tons of it upstairs, and I think a bunch of it, it's stuffed into a closet upstairs. I need to get a stepladder to go and get it. So if you do have an answer here, let me know in advance. Don't just show up at the door. You make your own paper tourist places. That's interesting. I wonder if they would take it. That's a good suggestion. That is a good suggestion. Maybe they would be interested in it. Very good. Thank you. I wonder how they're boiling the fiber, you know. Remember, their main place is back in Kochi prefecture, over in Shikoku. Here they're just doing the experience, the taiken. So I would guess, my guess, I don't know, they're boiling their mulberry fiber in Kochi and probably putting some of it in a chilled pack and sending it here by Takubin. So my guess is that they're probably not boiling fiber here, and they may not have a facility for that here. But I don't know, and I will definitely ask them. That is an excellent suggestion. Yeah, they're still open. I think they're doing okay. He was here a while ago. We have their pamphlet in our shop here, and every now and then we run out of pamphlets, and Teiko-san phones them up and says, can you bring over some more pamphlets? So he was here a couple of weeks ago. And I asked him, how's it going, you know, because sometimes I ask him, how's it going? And he's like, not many people come up those stairs, you know. And I'm like, well, please press on, press on. In our case, the first couple of years, not many people came up the stairs. But once word of mouth, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But recently, when he came the other day, he said, it's getting better, it's getting better. That is a really, really, really good suggestion. I can't believe I didn't think of it myself. This is such a nice design. You know, John did a good job for us this year, you know. It's peaceful, there's nothing much going on. I don't really care about that. I don't want excitement. The blend of colors we've done for this is nice. I'm so happy with John's work for this, you know. It's just exactly the right type of print for this use. Yeah. The raccoon thing, of course, for John, there's extra meaning in there. This is not John on the stream here. John Amos, the designer who created this for us, and his symbol is a tanuki. And I guess that's what he's, of course, included in here. His business venture is Tanuki Prints. If you Google Tanuki Prints, or I think it's tanukiprints.com, you'll see John's venture there. And actually, there's something to mention here. I got an interesting email from John, again, John Amos, from John last week. Some of you will remember that Mokuhankan a while ago, we experimented with making a group of tools, cutting tools. We hunted around and hunted around. This goes back 10 years. The project started about 10 years ago. We hunted around. The idea being that we would get some blades, get a blade maker, make some good tools, because there was I couldn't find any good tools out in the marketplace. People were asking me, where can I get good carving knives? I couldn't recommend anything. So the idea came up, this was in about 2012, that I would collaborate with a blade maker, blacksmith, and Mokuhankan would make a batch of tools. Just at the time we started that, what happened was I ran out of money, and then Ukiyo-e Heroes came along. That solved the money problem, but of course it totally disrupted all of our activities. And making and carving those Ukiyo-e Heroes prints in the 2012, 13, 14 blew away any kind of time I could spend on the tool project. Then we opened the shop, one thing led to another, and just bit by bit, the tool project went to sleep. When we became a company again in 2020, and I worked with Aoyama-san here for a while, he needed a project, and we revived the tool project. We got another blacksmith on board, and Aoyama-san started the work of producing a set of designs for handles, for making the knife blades and things. We worked along that this will be through 2020 and 2021, a lot of time spent. We had some designs made for handles. We found a shop up in northern Japan that would make the handles for us. We had sample batches made. And then 3 things got in the way to put the project on the sidelines. One is that the company making those handles, we gave them like electronic data, CAD data, and that they just could not or would not make the stuff to our specifications. For example, one idea, some of these tools have a handle that's one piece of wood. You cut it and split it and pin it, and it pivots, and the blades go inside. So they made a batch of these for us, 100 of them. And what they did was, brain dead people, they got the blanks, cut them, and threw the top and the bottom into buckets separately. And then at the end of the process, ran them back in randomly. So not only did the wood grain not match, even the cutting didn't match, and the things wouldn't line up, they wouldn't open close properly. It was a disaster. So we cut those guys, tried to find somebody else. And this is, we were getting back on our feet again after that. We got news from one of the 2 blacksmiths. We were going to do 2 lines of work, normal tools and high quality tools, super high quality tools. The guy who was making the normal tools wrote to us and said, I was sort of waiting for your order there, but I talked to you about this before, I'm getting kind of old. So he said, anyway, we can cancel this. So he retired. So the guy that we had tried to find for this retired. So we were thinking, okay, no problem, plan B, we can cut out the student line, we can just go with the high quality line. And it wasn't more than 2 or 3 months. We must have talked about this on the stream at the time. We got a contact from the guy's daughter. The other blacksmith, he had passed away. So the 2 men that we had hunted up to make these beautiful tools for us were now out of the picture, and the company we had got to make the handles for us was screwing up. So we just put it in the drawer, put it aside. We're busy here, blah, 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 blah. But we have hundreds and hundreds. We had bought from these two guys. We have hundreds of blades. So we have the bare blades for a cutting knife, for an isuki, for a U-gouge, for all these different gouges. We have hundreds of blank blades here with no structure, no handles for them, no boxes for them, no infrastructure to get them out into the market. John Amos has known about this. He knew about this. He saw some of these when he was here on one of his trips. Anyway, I got an email from him the other day, and his idea was very simple. He said, Dave, the tool thing isn't happening. I don't see any chance of it happening. He said at his end, Dave, I got lots of time. I got access to lots of good woodwork. This is America. We have hardwood for handles. I know what a good tool should look like. Let's do something with all those hundreds of tool blades that you've got in your drawer. And I'm like, you know what? I think that's probably been a pretty good idea. Because for me now to start at the beginning, well, it wouldn't be the beginning, but to start again and try and build that project, it's really not something I have any taste for. So, you know, making woodblock prints is turning out to be enough of a struggle for us as it is. So I'm thinking if we can work out a way to do it properly, and if John thinks he can actually do this, then there might be a shipment of hundreds of blades heading over to America. And maybe in a year or something, John might have an announcement. We'll see. It's all just at the moment nothing more than an idea. But I think it's a pretty good idea. So we'll see how it goes. Someone's asking, are these bookmarks? I know it's funny, you know, even Japanese people no longer recognize what this stuff is. The dimensions here, they're about 6 centimeters by 16 or 17. The dimensions here tell you that what we're looking at is based on the old concept, about 100 years ago, the concept of the senshafta prints that used to be common in Japan about 100 years ago. And to speak of senshafta prints, there's a backstory. I can share this with you, although I don't know how this is going to turn out. We got a phone call from our landlady a couple of weeks back, and she said, it's a friend of a friend of a friend kind of a story. I don't know how far the chain went along. She said, Dave, I know that you're interested in the old senshafta prints. Friend of a friend, etc., etc., etc. Their grandmother, they found their grandmother's old collection of senshafta. Would you be interested in taking a look at it? And I'm like, you mean, sure, if you want expert knowledge on everything that's in there, I'm not really your man. And she said, no. They're thinking of like to sell it or to throw it away or to whatever. They don't know what to do with it. So at this point, of course, my ears go, boop, beep, 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 beep. And I say, yeah, yeah, or whatever. Let's have a look at this. Send him over. So she called a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, and he came over. Actually, it was scheduled for Friday, and they canceled because of the typhoon. And the gentleman came over yesterday, 10 o'clock or so, with the proverbial shopping bag. He came over with a big brown shopping bag. And he starts to dump stuff on the table here. We sat down at the back room there, and he dumps this and dumps this and dumps this. I'm like, wait, what have you got here? And he had, it's again, the same thing we hear and see all the time. It's a combination of junk and treasure. In there are going to be, I guess, a number of complete sets of Sennschafter prints from the 1930s. It'll be maybe Showa 20, 25, Showa 30, something like that would be most of the dates on these things. But somebody, somewhere along the line, has had a hand in this bag, and it's all totally and completely mixed up. He pulls out a batch, maybe without exaggerating, a batch this high. He pulls out a batch this high, puts them on, and I start looking through, and there's a Sennschafter from one set. Then there's a trimmed Sennschafter from something else. Then there's 2 or 3 from another set. It's a complete total. It's like 52, pick up the little kids game we used to play. It's not quite that bad. And he sat there, he says, well, you know, 1, do you want this? And 2, what's your offer? And I have absolutely no data. I mean, yes, do I want this? Yes, because yes, it looks like there's going to be some wonderful prints in there. But how much am I willing to offer him for it? It's absolutely impossible to guess. Because full, nicely organized sets of prints from the 1920s are going to have value. But if 2 of them are gone and 3 of them are trimmed and we can't find the rest, then the money value is not there at all, you know. And he looked at me and I looked at him, and he's waiting for me to put a number on the table. We didn't even get halfway through the bag before it sort of, you know, an hour went by, and then another half hour went by, and, you know, and he's sort of looking at me, and I'm like, how much time can I spend on this? There's no hostility, he's just sitting here, he wants a number, and he isn't the person that's selling it. The story gets deeper, and it turns out the person who's selling it doesn't want their name in public. It's somebody famous or well-known or something. So this guy's acting as an agent for the guy who's got these from his grandmother. It's a fun story, and like, yeah, really? It all starts to sound like this is something that fell off the back of a truck or something like this. I don't think that's the case, you know. I think this really probably is something that came out of grandma's drawer, you know. Anyway, whatever. I sat there, and he wanted either me to say, sorry, take it away, or put a number on the table. And I put a number on there. It was 6 figures in Japanese. The first one was a 1. I put the number on the table and waiting for him to say, okay, that's fine. Or, gee, I'm sorry, no. When he didn't say either of those, he said, okay, let me talk to the owner here, and we'll come back. So that's where it stands. I made him an offer for the bag. He wouldn't leave it. You know, what I asked him too is, leave this thing. Let me go through and have a little bit of sorting and try and figure out what the value might be, and I can give you a better estimate. He wouldn't do that. So someone's got it, trying to trade in a plastic bag full of old magic cards or something. You know, what's in there? Who knows? There could be the card. It could be in there, but you don't know, you know. So, and I have no idea who this is. It could be somebody well-known, or it could be just someone who doesn't want me to know his name. It could be the owner of the whale restaurant or something. I have no idea. I don't know. So whatever. I think I'll be getting a phone call later today, and the guy will say, okay, or not. And if he says, okay, whatever, I fork it over. And then the fun begins, you know. I'm not too worried about it. If there are nice sets in there, then I will take those sets for the collection. And if it turns out that it's really just a grab bag full of more random items, then it's okay, because we have a way to put those into the market. We have a cheap thrills corner in our shop where if it turns out that we've just got a bunch of random Senshafada from the 1920s, then our conscience is clear. We can sell them one by one, two by two. The staff can put them in little packs and people can enjoy just picking up a couple of prints, just sort of like this, for example. The two prints maybe would be in a pack. They're broken sets, the themes don't match, but they're from 1924. There would be people who would enjoy this. And we could sell that for whatever, 500 yen or 1,000 yen or something like that. I don't even know. So the risk for me isn't so great. There might be some really nice sets for me in this bag. It could turn out to be hontoni, just a pile of random prints. But there are so many in there, I think it would feed our Cheap Thrills corner for the next 10 years. You know. You would like to see the chibis up close, somebody. Can we zoom in for a minute? Hi. They are nicely done and nicely printed. The carving is whatever. I don't think they are ice cubes, as somebody keeps repeating. I think they are fish food lumps of some kind, but I don't know. This is from Mr. K, our printer, Kawai Atsushi, and he's got just the right balance of black here. It's not super jet black, it's black enough. It's a bit of a gray tint. We're looking at, what, 80% black? You tell me, I don't know. And of course, John did this. John sent the design outside the border in a couple of places. It's become a little bit of a trademark. This is John's idea. It's not my idea. It didn't go everywhere. To do it, you know, everywhere and always would have been too much. And we missed one part of John's suggestion, actually. When John sent me the idea, I'm not sure if I should talk about this because it might spoil the picture for you. Once I tell you this, you can't unsee it. Is that okay if I talk about this? It's the question of how much these fish are underwater or not. And I think we talked about this at the time of the color separations. If the fish were totally underwater, then these ripples, which are clearly on the surface, would cover the fish, which they seem to be doing here. But this ripple does. But this ripple, does it come on top of the fish? Yes, I guess it does. This ripple, shouldn't it go on top of the actual lily pad that's here? This ripple goes on top of that lily pad. So I'm not sure if we have a consistent answer here. And were the fins transparent? Seems so, because we can see that line. This fin isn't. We talked about this when I was carving. So there are certain things on this thing that maybe, if you think about them too much, don't add up. And someone's got it here, Mr. XXXX, says, don't think about it. And I don't care either. This is not a scientific treatise illustration. This is a beautiful little colorful woodblock print with a very soft design and a very soft touch. I sent it to John and he didn't complain, so I think either he didn't notice or, again, he's going with the flow here. It's a very pleasant design, and don't overanalyze it and don't overthink it. Oh, that was Vivid KP, was it? I'm sorry, Karen, I didn't notice you. Excuse me. Sorry. Schrodinger's fishes. Somebody's overthinking, I tell you. I'm going to keep one uncut here for our files. So I'll just cut the top. I'll keep it for our files. How's our time? 8:52. Okay, we're okay. Now I'm probably going to get called out on something else here. Let's see, that's the winter one. These won't be shipped for months yet. These go into storage. So what's next is I've got to take the summer one, which the staff needs to pack today. And these have to be trimmed to 16 millimeters, 16 centimeters. And somebody is perhaps going to call me out on this. To do it the way I'm doing it here, 16. Boom. Is this correct, Dave? Think. Is this correct? Are you sure it's not 17? No, it's 16. Someone is probably going to ask me, why am I doing it this way when it's going to take 4 cuts? We had 1 cut, 2 cuts from the top, and now we're going to cut 3, and then we got to get the other ones, and we have to cut 4. But if I had done this horizontal cut first, then it would have meant only 3 cuts in all instead of 4. Well, there were, just a minute. There were people calling you out 45 minutes ago to cut the end before them apart, but I didn't see it. Okay, whatever. If I had seen it, I still would have blown you away. Because the problem is, our cutting board here is not accurate. And this top line here isn't actually 90 degrees with this thing. Now for a little chibi cut like this, I'm cutting the end off this thing here now. Oops. 16. I cut the end off. Boom. It's actually not quite 90. But I would defy you or me or whatever. It's going to go in the packaging and no one will actually notice it. But when the cut gets longer, when we're cutting stuff that's longer, the variation from 90 degrees does have an effect. And we learned, bitter experience, we learned that if we cut the end of this thing this way, ka-chunk, 2 of them, the bottom one was visibly a little bit off. So we just got to somehow, we got to fix this thing. It's not actually user maintainable. So we're just living with this thing. And doing it this way. I'm sorry if you're embarrassed that Dave is willing to do something so hugely inefficient with time-wise. Again, I told you, I need this kind of job too, just to sit here and chill. Yeah, a better paper cutter might be worth the investment. Actually, this one is much better than the one we had, its predecessor. They just don't make stuff anymore with any care, you know, whatever, rumble, grumble, old man. But it's a bit of a paradox. In the old days, stuff was sort of made well and sort of not made well. You know, nowadays we have iPhones and computer chips that are spectacularly well made. But stuff that's in the middle, like household goods, like this sort of stuff, it's much less quality than it used to be. I guess if it can be totally automated, then we're good to go. But for stuff that needs some modicum of hand assembly or working by hand, those things end up being not well made. Whatever, I'm not going to worry about it. It's not going to kill me to sit here peacefully and do this job. But I got to watch our time, 8:57, okay. So show and tell today is going to be a bit of a strange little mix. My show and tell backup, we may or may not get to it, is the last batch. Remember, we've got this box sitting here that had pochibukuro, the little envelopes. There's a batch in there we haven't seen yet. That's the show and tell backup if we get to it. We may not get to it because I've got something else I want to show you today that's related to the video production. We'll talk about it when we get to it. Someone says, I have multiple paper cutters that just can't cut straight. Yeah, well, welcome to the world. Welcome to the modern world, too. You know. The local Kinko's has paper cutters on the table, and my God, what a disaster they are. I've learned now, when I'm at the Kinko's in Ueno, getting a job done, I take my own ruler and I take my own cutter knife because I can't use the paper cutters on the table at Kinko's. They're a disaster. Or last time I tried, it's been a while now. We could perhaps actually zoom in so you can see the print a little more, I don't know. Someone says, thank you for these streams. If today was a typical stream, I don't know. I think we'd lose 99% of our viewers in pretty short order. We will soon be returning back to actual Japanese printmaking. You know, regular viewers here know what's happened. I've finished a long major job, and the next job has yet to start. So there's all kinds of jobs to do. There's the Surfer Girl blocks are sitting right within reach there. I still have to get that organized. There's the question of who will be carving the first print in next year's subscription series. It might be me, it might be Taran-san. We haven't sort of worked all that out yet. I don't know. There's also the boys with the inkstone. And then this year's gift print, which we spent a lot of time over the weekend trying to come up with a design for it. There will be a gift print this year, absolutely. That's a tradition, which is a very important part of our business. It's not just a tradition culturally, it's a tradition business-wise. There will be a gift print and there will be a New Year print. There will be two separate things. And the gift print, I've got to get going. I've got to decide because it's got to be cut and printed and ready to go in early autumn. Suggestions, welcome. So I'm saying, does viewer count peak during the last 15 minutes? It does indeed. I start these streams at 8, and viewer count climbs steadily over the next 30 minutes. And I think this is as Twitch sends out emails to different people. They don't send out the notifications all at the moment of the stream starting. They seem to stagger it. So viewer count climbs over the first 30 minutes. Then it stays stable. People come, people go, people come, people go, until 9:15. Then there is a jump at 9:15 when a bunch of people join us who are not interested in this part of the stream, but who like to get a glimpse of the show and tell segment. So there's a jump in viewership. It's about a 15 to 20% jump at 9:15. Someone says, you watch the NHK video and you're struggling to understand the point. The point actually is very, very clear. The entire series of that program, the one called Chat Room, the point is clear. It's subtle, quiet propaganda, not in any evil way. It's subtle, quiet propaganda to show that, yes, indeed, it is possible for a foreigner, someone from another country, to actually come to Japan and live. And they will have struggles, they will have barriers to overcome, but it is indeed possible for a foreigner to work hand in hand with Japanese people and move forward to a bright future and live happily ever after. That's sort of the basic propaganda message of that series. And it became very obvious when we saw the segments of my conversation that she chose. There is also subtopics. They're obviously clearly trying to show something about women in the workforce, women in the labor force. Another reason why they chose us. And the idea of remote working. It's another one of the things they're trying to promote. You know, NHK is funny. It's a government-funded organization. They are theoretically completely independent. The government cannot tell NHK what to broadcast. It's not a government mouthpiece channel. But clearly, the people, the executive producers, know what to do. They know the messages that Japan would like to be broadcasting to the world. I got no problem with this particular message. Is it possible for a foreigner to come to Japan, integrate well, get over the struggles, and work together hand in hand with Japanese people? Is it possible? Yes. My only downside to the thing of having that program up there and being part of that and the chat room program, all the rest of it, is these are very much cherry-picked examples. They've picked this guy who after 40 years has integrated and built a company and works smoothly with Japanese people. If that's the propaganda message that, yes, indeed, anybody can come to Japan and it will work. Immigration is okay, there won't be any problems. If that's the implied message, then of course that's not how it works. NHK News, I don't think they're trying to be a mouthpiece. The people doing the news there, they will be daily independent. There's going to be no phone calls from a government agency saying, hey, put this on the news tonight. That's impossible. It's probably impossible legally. NHK, although they're funded by the government, there must be a charter there that sets forward their independence. So please don't misunderstand what I'm saying here. This is not like a propaganda mouthpiece in some fascist regime or something. Of course not. It's an independent broadcast channel. But they themselves, the people that run the place, they know Japanese problems. They want to see if they can show ways to solve these problems. It's a very interesting situation. But the other thing too, Vivid KP's got an important point here. When I mentioned that kind of propaganda, that is to try and teach Japanese people that yes, indeed, don't panic about the foreigners because it's possible they can come here and integrate and work together with society. But given that, this program, this particular series of programs, is not aimed at the domestic market. These are programs in English aimed overseas. So when you think about it that way, what's the message then to overseas people? Come to Japan and be happy ever after? I don't really know, because there's no easy routes for immigration here, of course. Japan doesn't need to promote the rest of the world. Hey, we've got some spots here, come on over and join us, because that's not how it works. Yeah, John's comment makes sense too, you know. Okay, almost done with our chopping. Let's move on. Look at some prints in a minute. Someone's saying, how many 25K houses left? Millions. Not sure about Echizen. I don't know if Vivid KP, your comment about Echizen, this is perhaps not all that accurate. The new train station, there's the new Hokuriku Shinkansen there. There's the brand new train station right in that town. And of course, this has had an effect on the things prices up there. Also, right in front of the new Hokuriku Shinkansen train station in our town, the town where our paper making is made, it's called Echizen Takefu Station. Right in front of it, on a piece of land about half a mile square, they're building a chip factory. So there's going to be a stunning, stunning labor shortage up in that area. There's going to be a housing shortage. So if you're looking for your little 25K house and you think you might get it right in the paper-making village, that's probably not going to happen. Okay, a couple more minutes here. We'll have a strange schedule here today. This job will be finished now in 1 or 2 minutes. Okay, we're done cutting this morning. No, chips. I seen computer chips. There's a massive, massive chip factory being built. You know the deal. It's not just Japan, it's America these days. They're trying to bring home a lot of things that went overseas. So chip production is one of these things. So there's a massive chip factory under construction at the moment in our paper-making village. And I am told it's playing havoc with land prices and labor costs and whatever. I don't know more details than that. Okay, the offcuts go into our ever-growing bag upstairs. If somebody wanted these offcuts, there was comment earlier in the stream, please let me know if you want to come and pick some of them up. Okay, now, let's do a bit of a strange, different, bit of a mix of things for show and tell. I'm going to need a couple of images. These might do it. Let's see, I'll need another image, 1 sec. These are props that I am in the middle of getting ready for the next video. And it's not like all the things I'm going to say in the video are top secret, so I can share some of these things with you right now. I'm going to have to figure out how to tell this story properly when I get to the actual video itself. At the moment, I'm just collecting ideas, I'm collecting notes. I've got a thick, massive file of notes that I'm trying to organize into a coherent script for how to tell the story about Mokuhankan's washi problem. And one of the ways to start talking about our washi problem at Mokuhankan is we're going to start with this image. This is going to be the first image that I show in the video. Welcome to Mokuhankan. You've heard us talk about our problem with washi, blah, 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 blah. Boom. Okay, this is a photocopy. I don't have the real thing, of course. In fact, the prints you're going to see, these are all just copies for use in the video. I don't actually own any Rembrandt etchings, nor will I ever have such a thing as a Rembrandt etching. This, I'm told, is from 1649. It's a superbly made, I guess, I can't imagine how he actually made this. It's a Rembrandt etching from 1649. And the reason I'm including it in this next video is I learned over the past few months while doing research on washi for our own use that Rembrandt made many of his etchings on Japanese paper. And this is one such. And if you go back 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, there was an art gallery, I think it was in Australia, in New South Wales somewhere, maybe the New South Wales National Gallery of Art or something, whatever. They have a bunch of Rembrandt etchings, and they got some of their researchers, also they brought in people from Japan, and they started investigating what kind of paper these Rembrandt etchings were made on. And long story short, they're made on Japanese gampi paper. Gampi paper meaning the stuff that we do, you know, you've seen me play with gampi paper all the time, right? I don't have a piece in front of me right now. Yeah, here, our Japanese gampi paper that we use for our peeling. So Rembrandt apparently loved the stuff. There's notes left behind from him, and for the last half of his life or something, you know, don't quote me exactly on these numbers, but for the last portion of his life, he made most of his prints. They weren't woodblock prints. This is not carved woodblock. This is an etching or a dry point or something. I don't know. They're made on gampi paper. Now at this point, you think, we've all heard this story, Japanese woodblock prints went over to Europe. We all know this story. Japanese prints, with the opening of Japan, flooded over to Europe, and many, many European artists were this is a photocopy, it's a photocopy. Japanese prints went over to Europe and influenced all the artists of the day and whatever else they were going on for years and years and years. We know those stories. So why am I telling you this story about this? What's the big deal? Well, that's actually a different story. There's a different story that people have got confused here. When we look at something like this is a Hiroshige print, and Van Gogh had an original one of these in his collection. This is a Japanese print that went over to Europe, and people like Van Gogh were engrossed. But this is 1856. This is 200 years in the future for Rembrandt. The Japanese prints going over there, the Hiroshige prints going over there, is nothing to do with Rembrandt. We have to go back in time a bit. So let's do this. Let's go back. And if I can figure out how to do it, I'm going to make this part of the next video. Let's go back. We've now rolled back to the 1830s. This is another print that had a dramatic influence on Europeans. Rembrandt? This is still 180 years in the future. Okay, we roll back. We're going back in time through ukiyo-e history. Utamaro, he worked long before Hiroshige. This is now 1790 or something. Rembrandt? No. It's still 140 years in the future. Okay, let's roll back to the beginning of when color printing was first done. This is a Harunobu design. Most of his color printing was done in the 1760s after they figure out how to do Kento registration, things like that. This is still more than 100 years in the future for our friend Rembrandt. Okay, we go back now. Before color printing has been invented, we got a print like this, which was carved on a black block, and it's made with hand-painted colors. We're probably in the 1720s here. Nope, it's still a lifetime, 70 years after Rembrandt. Okay, here now we're back at the very earliest days of Japanese prints. This is 1670. They haven't invented anything yet except chopping a piece of wood and putting a piece of paper, and there's your picture. No, it's still 25, 30 years or so in advance of Rembrandt. Now the point I'm trying to get at is that the idea here, Rembrandt is using Japanese paper to make prints before the Japanese were making prints. Now, when I first realized this, I think my head went and like there's goop all over the ceiling. Rembrandt and his compeers, people near him, they were using Japanese paper to make Japanese prints before the Japanese ever thought of such a thing. And this is absolutely crazy. And the supply chain, you think Dave has a supply chain problem here, getting paper from Imadate-machi. Where did he get this stuff? Okay, this is the era then. This is 1649. This is the era when Japan is now. They've shut the doors already. They've booted out the Jesuits who were there in the 1500s. They're allowing trade through a little island in Nagasaki called Dejima, run by Dutch people. So we have a connection. And there are records of the shipments and stuff that they sent out through Dejima. And among those things, among the Japanese exports at the time, and it's funny, if you try and get a list of what was Japan exporting to Europe in the 1600s, what's the number one thing that they were exporting? You would never guess in a million years. I didn't know this till I started the researching. The number one Japan export through there, I was going to say silk, of course. No, at that time, Japan was importing silk from China. Japan wasn't yet a silk player in the industry in the 1600s. They were exporting silver. Mines in Japan, the troglodytes were going into the mines, digging silver, and this is what was being exported to Europe as the number one export in the 1600s, along with other stuff like Japanese crafts, lacquerware, scrolls, and things like this that the high-end people in Europe would want to buy. And among them were bales of paper. So the paper would make its way to Europe somehow and whatever. Now, I have no idea. Rembrandt strolled down to his local stationery shop and said, give me another 50 sheets of Japanese Gampi number 42. I doubt that's how it happened. I have no idea what happened. But anyway, the Gampi paper did make its way over there to Europe. Rembrandt loved it, tried to get as much as he could, and for the rest of his life, most of his prints were made on the Japanese paper. And the Australian guys, this exhibition I mentioned a few years ago, the Australian guys who did the research on this, they put this stuff under x-rays, under microscopes, under you name it. They blew it up, whatever. They investigated these pieces of paper. And they found very, very interesting that this Gampi paper is made once, rocked, and then rocked again, and it is very heavily layered. And I suspect the researchers have misunderstood part of this. And what they state in their research presentation is that the Gampi paper that Rembrandt has used is made of 1 or 2 or 3 separate sheets of Gampi paper layered together and dried together. Because I guess maybe they've tried to take a piece of it, and you've seen how we do this on our peels and peel it apart. And if that's the case, they may be actually misunderstanding just how this is made. When the person is rocking the Gampi paper, they rock, chok, 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 rock again, chok, 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 and chok, chok, chok. And those layers are the parts that peel apart. So it's not 3 separate sheets of paper that are glued together for Rembrandt to use. It's 1 piece of Gampi paper. The other thing they mentioned, the researchers, they have found that most of this paper that Rembrandt was using is pure Gampi fiber, as to be expected, mixed with very finely ground rice powder. It has a white rice powder filler in here. Now, these days, one of the things that we get from our paper from Iwano-san is we also want a filler. Pre-war, they were using rice. Post-war, it became common to use a white clay called kaolin. That's what's inside the paper that we use nowadays. And the Gampi paper that I use for peels and stuff has no such filler inside. There was no evidence of mulberry fiber in the Rembrandt prints that were inspected in this exhibition. 5 or 6 or 7 of them were put into electronic analysis or magnification analysis. And they found most of them were made with Gampi paper. They found a couple of his etchings were made on a paper made with bamboo fibers. And again, this is out of my field whatsoever. The researchers put the idea on the table that perhaps this was from Japan, or perhaps there was China, a paper from China, a different method that had been mixed in and made its way to Holland, and Rembrandt was there. And another question, when you think of Rembrandt working there in the 1600s, obviously I said stroll down to his local stationery store and buy the paper. He couldn't do that. But at some point, I mean, there was paper, of course, being made in Europe. There was cotton paper, paper made from rags. I don't know the specific history of it, but there was paper there. Did Rembrandt at some point take some of this Gampi paper, stroll down to his local paper maker? Ooh, there must have been paper makers right there in his area. Did he say, guys, look at this. Can you make me something like this? You know, if you think about Rembrandt, he desperately needs this stuff. Very difficult to get from these boats that are arriving from overseas every 3 years or something, you know. If I had been Rembrandt, I would have thought, man, I got to find somebody locally who can make this stuff for me. You know. Did he try? Or did he just hang out at the docks waiting for these boats to come in from Japan, you know? Very, very, very interesting. The Japanese paper was a big thing in the world of printmaking before the Japanese even started making prints themselves, you know. My problem with this video is how to keep it to a manageable length, because the story, the Japanese paper and the roots and where we are right now, and David getting up there, where we're not there, it's David getting up here, you know. This is all going to be part of this video. And my challenge is to try and make this thing something somewhat less than 10 hours long. I don't know. Okay, I'm told that there are prints in here that we haven't looked at yet, but I have no idea which ones we have seen and which ones we haven't seen. Someone's talking about the video, make it a trilogy. That's not how it works. I've tried this before by making a part 1 and a part 2 and a part 3. And Google ends up blah, 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 blah. And people parachute into part 3. They look at it. They don't go back to part 2. The viewership is X viewers for part 3, X viewers for part 2, and X viewers for part 1. The story just doesn't get told that way. So I'm trying to get the core of this story. What kind of paper do we need? Why do we need this paper? Why do we have a problem these days getting this paper? That 1, 2, 3 points. I'm trying to get these into a single video. And I am struggling. Someone says, put the links in the description. It doesn't work. There are people who will follow them. Most people don't. They don't get the story. Do you remember which ones we've seen, which ones we haven't seen? I don't have a clue. The Tokaido ones we looked at. Whatever, let's just open some, and if they look familiar, we'll move on to something else. Very few people look at the descriptions in YouTube videos. So my challenge is to concisely. I don't think we've seen this right away. Here we go, with a little bucket. These, I can tell you already, this is Kyogen from No. And maybe the person who had this particular batch of Pochibukuro was really quite a fan of the No theater. Someone's saying do both a concise and a long form. I'm trying to do only concise. If I do a long form, it'll be 10 hours long. Anyway, enough about that for now. It's coming soon. I am now at the stage of preparing all the props I need. The portion of the video that was recorded up in Fukui Prefecture is finished. It's in the can. I haven't done any color work on it yet. The audio is going to be what it is. What I need to do now is finish getting my props ready, come down here one night, put the camera, and do the thing. Good evening, woodblock printmaker Dave Bull here at my studio in Asakusa, Tokyo. So coming now. Tom's got it. Make it as long as you need, just add timestamps. And that's what's going to happen. I think at the moment it's looking like it'll be about an hour long. Are these indeed woodblock prints? It looks a bit, oh yes, they are. They are. Remember we had those prints the other day that turned out to be half-tone screened. No, these are woodblocks. It's a small set of woodblock pochibukuro. I can't read the first character. The second one is raku, used as in music or whatever. And these are clearly from the No Theater, and I believe they are from Kyogen episodes, which are the comic relief episodes that are used to break up sometimes a very long performance of No. These would date from pre-war. Again, we know that nothing like this was published after the war. This would be again 1930, 1935, something like that. They're very nicely made, and because they've been wrapped up and never touched and never opened, they're in beautiful condition. Let's have a close-up. People who know the theater more than me. Oh, there is interesting. There is some. Look at this. Yes, look at this. You can see it here. Ho, 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 ho. We have pigment decay. Whether this is oxidization or a reduction, I don't know the actual thing that's happening. There will be a pigment here that has one of its components that has decayed over time. This would have originally been pink. And maybe they've used a bit of tan inside there, which does react. It's not metallics. It wouldn't be copper, no. And I can't give you any information on who these characters are. If there happens to be a no expert in our chat today, somebody's thinking it was no. It could be, I guess, now that you think about it. So this is no daku kana. Yes, look at this. Lots of decayed pigment here. So even being tucked away in a drawer and not exposed. Everything you see is printed. There's nothing that's sort of painted on or whatever. And this is all an kasure-bori. They've carved this with what's called scratch carving, or sometimes it's known as sabi-bori. Sabi meaning rusty. I prefer the term kasure-bori, kasure scratch. And you can sort of see where the original strokes were, and then someone has come along with his knife and bang, 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 beaten it up a bit to make it look like a brush that's run out of ink. Nicely made. It's a bit of, too bad about the decayed pigment, but they're nice little objects. And again, to reiterate, those of you who are seeing these for the first time, these are all envelopes. In the original time, the envelopes would have been, for gifting. When you pay somebody money, the tradition in Japan was to never, ever, this is not now, this is in a previous era, you never would pass money directly from your hands to somebody else. It would have been wrapped in a piece of paper at the very least. It would have been slipped into an envelope at best. These could have been used for that function, but the fact that they were sold in sets with themes, people by this time were starting to collect such things. So there may have been people who would have, paid their dance instructor the fee through the use of such an envelope, but maybe not. Who's here? Oh, it's Udagawa-san. Soka, it's 9:30. Look at this. Hello, hello.
Good morning.
Were you standing outside listening to the stream?
Yeah.
We have fans in-house and out-house. Okay. All right, thanks very much, gang. It's Monday morning now. Next stream will be in 3 days, and that's so far away from me at the moment, with so many jobs to do at the moment, that I can't predict what's going to be happening. It could be a carving stream. It could be one of those streams where I'm actually recording YouTube video, and we're going to look over my shoulder while I record video. I don't know. That's a bit hard to set up. I don't know. I'll be here 3 more days from now with something to show you. Thanks again for watching. Let's put up the outside. Oh, I see it's oshibori time, the delivery of cold, hot towels. Is it getting cloudy out there? Is it rainy today? What's the forecast? I don't know. It was blue sky when I opened up the stream, and now it looks like it's getting a bit more cloudy. I don't know. Who knows? Okay, anyway, I'm out of here. Thank you very much, gang. I've had fun doing not much of anything today, but chatting with you. See you next time. Let's shut this down. 3, 2, 1.